Good morning, everybody. I'm making a podcast to talk about something today that's really disturbing to me. I um, I just read an email here in my inbox that a friend sent to me. I subscribe to these various and my friend and I subscribe to these various USDA um, newsletters, electronic newsletters, or the extension service newsletters, just to stay on top of what's going on in the environmental management or the organic certification, things like that. And it's not that I want to be educated, is I want to see. I mean, it's not that I want them to quote educate me. I want to see the stupid crap they're doing, basically. Because these people at the USDA, these university professors at the extension service, the departments in the universities, are by and large tools. They're tools being used by the big corporate chemical corporations and the UN sustainability agenda and so on and so forth. They don't really sit down and think about things for themselves. They just push agendas. And I know because I used to be part of that academic environment and the research environment and the government management, sustainable management departments. So here's the email here from the USDA is telling us there's a new weed in town. Warnings about Palmer amaranth. There you go. And I already know about amaranth. It's one of my favorite plants. And I don't know if they're going to put me to jail for this, but I grow amaranth in my garden. And not only that, I promote amaranth. And it's taking over parts of my garden. So there you go. And the reason I say they might put me to jail is because they have now, in this year 2017, June, July was it? It has now been put on the noxious weed list, and it's part of the noxious weed law, okay, of the and it depends on each state. Okay, each state has their own little list, but this here is now in the what region? Let me see here. Minnesota, where else? Anyways, it's the new evil plant in town. And this amaranth. Okay, wait, let me, before I tell you about the amaranth, where did I read this here? Let me see. I'm scrolling down here on a web page where it says, 28 states have been put like now on this list of making sure they check up on it, but not all of them yet have put them on the noxious invasive weed list. But well, I can't find it. I'm looking. It said somewhere that they could take legal actions against people who fail to properly address the issues and to eradicate this weed. Okay, get rid of it, and so the law could crack down basically on people who don't comply with getting rid and killing this plant, removing it, and you will see how terrible, how bad this gets with how does one deal to get rid of this. this evil plant. Now this amaranth, I made a video on this here on my Sacred Agriculture YouTube because I love this plant. It is a plant that basically is native to North America and Mexico, South America. Also, that plant was the main staple food of many natives here. Okay, and it was the traditional food of Native Americans, including the Aztecs, the Maya, the Navajos, the Pima, the Yuma, the Mojave, and countless others. This amaranth is a beautiful green plant that grows. It's a wild edible that grows here, that was here before we were here. I mean, by we, I'm talking about the European settlers, you know. We are the invasive people. We are the invasive species. Ask the First Nation, who's the invasive species? Who's the species that has done the more harm to this land? Amaranth or the European and settlers? Who's done more? Who's the invasive species? Okay, so, and this food was also for one of these Native Americans was actually linked to one of their gods. You know, this amaranth is, you could eat the leaves, you could take this, you could boil the stems, but the seeds, oh man, it grows, it makes so many seeds, and these seeds are a powerhouse of energy. They are complete protein. It includes lysine as the an amino acid. Okay, this is like and it grows, like, it spreads, it grows amazingly. It doesn't, you don't need to water it, you don't need to fertilize it. It just grows amazingly and produces a lot of food. And it grows also in other places in the world. I have a friend that comes from Bangladesh and said that his family and his and other families around his village, they were very poor. Sorry. And they had amaranth. They were farmers and they grew amaranth, and they ate amaranth for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, you know. And they had all sorts of recipes, and amaranth is what helped them survive and live. You see, this is a food. This is an amazing food. And what gets me is that there's these dinglings at the USDA, the Extension Service, and these dinglings in the sustainability movement and environmentalists are all on board about this propaganda that there's too many people on the planet. Agriculture cannot feed all these people, and so we have to rely on the science and technology to grow better crops that are genetically engineered in order to resist climate change and to grow in wetter, drier, whatever climates, because there's too many people on this planet, and our current food system cannot supply that much food. Oh, what a tearjerker. There's too many people. We can't eat. Oh, we're all gonna die of hunger. You see, that is the most stupidest propaganda ever, because there is enough food out there for everybody, and it comes through the facade of these noxious invasive weeds. That's how that's how like far removed, okay, we've become from nature. Amaranth, if farmers turned to amaranth and we had seeds and we could make all sorts of products with it, power bars, we could make some sort of porridge, a little packet. You just put a bit of hot water on it. They could prepare it in a certain way. We could have all these greens, you know. There would be so much food, and amaranth is just one, okay, one of all the weeds out there, quote, weeds, the amazing, beautiful, generous, wild edibles that don't need fertilizer, that don't need pesticides, chemicals, that don't need farmers per se. It would be a whole re-education of the agricultural system that is needed, and we could feed more than all the humans on this planet. But you see, we have been told, quote, brainwashed to what we, quote, believe is food. We're told this, that, this, and that is food, and that is what you're going to eat, and mostly that is poison. It's genetically modified, sprayed with all sorts of stuff, fertilized with human shit. Like all sorts of stuff is going on with, and these foods these seeds have been domesticated, hybridized, and that is what we consider food. That nutritionists learn in university, that is part of what constitute a healthy diet and brings nutrition and health to humans. Bullshit. I call the bullshit on that one big time. Now, this Palmer amaranth, how did it get there? Okay, it got to be an invasive weed through the lobby of these big corporations like Monsanto, Bayer, and all their ding-a-ling tools working at the USDA and university extension services, and all these ding-a-lings professors out there supporting this agenda. And all the minions that are in the environmental movement pushing the climate change, we're all going to die, there's not enough food, and we need to be more sustainable stuff. People, wake up. Okay, so it was in 1915 that in Virginia it was reported to being problematic to whatever they were trying to force down nature's throat. Okay, then in 1989 in South Carolina, it was, we have a weed here. And then in 1955, it was like, oh, okay, now this is troublesome. And this is a cotton industry. The cotton industry. Think about it. The United States. That's where the slavery was, like, they emerged. That's what they were using human beings, They were enslaving the Afro-Americans to come here, treating them like garbage, worse than garbage, like treating them like sub-animals, to go in these cotton fields and bring money to these rich, white, privileged power elite. And I'm not going to mention which nation was behind that, but do your research, folks. There was one privileged nation's power elite in there. One of them was chosen. And anyways, the cotton industry was like, we got to get rid of this. And 2009, that was it. That was it. It was the most troublesome weed in cotton in the southern U.S. Okay? This amaranth. Why? Because it was ruining the party for these people who were pillaging the land and growing this cotton in a very aggressive, dominating fashion with all of their fertilizers, pesticides, and all that. They didn't want to have any weed in there, anything. Now, listen to this. Monsanto came along and made all these Roundup ready species like soybean. And now this soybean, Roundup ready soybean, that has this herbicide attached to the genetics of the seed, that you spray this, you put these soybeans in this cotton, and then all the weeds die, and then you're growing your cotton. Woohoo! You pay all this money for this amazing technology that's going to save the planet. Amaranth is resistant to their Roundup. So now they've got their panties in a wad. They're like, okay, wait a minute. Hey, you farmers, don't panic. We're going to come up with some better herbicides, a cocktail of herbicides. They got this propaganda out there. I will use multiple herbicides. I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will defend my crop with careful herbicide management. I will use multiple herbicides because every actions count. Okay? So now they've got the Amaranth as the evil invader that has to be dominated and killed and eradicated, because it's interfering with their little evil empire of controlling what food is. The soya bean, genetically altered product that is supposed to be feeding the world. The glyphosate that controls 200 plus weed species, but it doesn't do it for amaranth, and it doesn't do it for what they call these driver weeds. These driver weeds are the bane in this Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenza's profit margin, because the farmers are like, well, we don't know if we want to go down that disgusting path of yours. They don't say that. They're brainwashed. They're like, huh, we have to. Please tell us what to do, because we invested all our money in your genetic seeds and your glyphosate stuff. Why is it that I have all these weeds growing in my soya bean crops and cotton fields? Okay? And I'm very agitated right now. Bayer crop science specialist. And he's got these farmers, who think they're righteous because they're like, this one here says, this farmer says, today was a come to Jesus moment for me. I did not conceive how bad it was before he was educated by the bear people to say, oh, look at how scary this is. This pigweed, they call it pigweed, is infesting my crop, and I'm going to need to do something about it. Now I'm going to have to be educated by Bayer how to kill this and how to have a weed control program. They call it even a sustainable weed control program. They've even tagged in sustainable there. And worse, the USDA also have their ding-a-ling, these guys here from the Farm Service Agency, Chris Bayerleham, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, with this Lennon Joe, an acting chief natural resource conservation service of the USDA. Now they're like, uh-oh, these people work for the conservation service, and they're like, uh-oh, we got to do something about this amaranth. We have to come up with something that's going to invade the conservation plantings across the upper Midwest. What's a conservation planting? It's supposed to be an area that surrounds your farm or surrounds a certain area that kind of acts as a buffer, where you're going to be using native plants and things like that to try to stabilize the environment. And but they're now going to be using these multiple rounds of herbicides in the conservation areas to get rid of a native plant that is food. These are specialists. I tell you, I don't know how they live with themselves. Well, actually, I do. It's all mind control, really. Honestly, that's all it is. They're in the mindset. They've been brainwashed in school. They've went to university, which was another pile of piling it high, deep. And then they became experts, and they were told they were experts. They have an office somewhere. They have a little card. They have doctor beside their name. They win awards. They have big salaries, and they get to tell people, I'm an expert. I work at the conservation service, and people are like, ooh, isn't she amazing? Isn't Chris amazing? Look at Chris. He's really doing something for the planet. Yeah, he is. He's really doing something. They really are something, Conservation planting on critical areas. Got the guide I downloaded here, USDA. National Research Conservation Service, a guide, 85 pages for the dingalings to read and get brainwashed. Take action, herbicide resistant management. You know, man, I'm telling you, like they've got this here, Roundup Powerhouse Plus Atrasex, Roundup Powerhouse Max Plus Sharpen, you know, 33 gallon ounces plus one fluid gallon of the other one. They've got now, okay, if that doesn't work, you got the Roundup plus the Gramoxone Interferon plus the 2,4-D, 4 pints of one plus 1 pint of the other. And this is how much you spray. The atrazine, see? The atrazine. Read up on atrazine, folks. This is what we're going to be spraying in our conservation areas and all across the fields of this soya bean that's going to make your tofu. It's going to make the tofu of the environmentalists, of the new age environmentalist yoga practitioner eating this tofu because he's saving the planet. Yeah, what you need to know, folks, is not what they tell you you need to know. Damn. So they say you really have to be on the lookout for this threatening weed. Really be on the lookout, and contact your local authority if ever you see it. You know, help your neighbors, because at one point this will be like vaccination. If you don't vaccinate your kids, your neighbor's gonna freak out because he's gonna say, hey, you didn't vaccinate your kid. Your kid's gonna come infect my kid and my kid's gonna get sick. I'm like, hold on, didn't you just vaccinate your kid? He or she should be protected. No, but the vaccine doesn't always stick, you know. No, the vaccine doesn't work, basically. It's making your kid sick, and you want to make mine sick because you've been programmed and brainwashed. And now you want me to think like you. I'm sorry, but you know, there's no time here to be politically correct. There's no time here for me to try to mince my words so that, you know, I won't insult these doctor dingalings. Hey, you know, amaranth can develop resistance to herbicides such as glyphosate, acetylysate, synthesize and inhibiting herbicides, and so on. So they're going to up their warfare. You see what's going on? We're not going towards sustainable organic management. We're going towards upping the battle. More chemicals. Science is going to save the day. Science, folks, is the problem. Don't matter what your friends say. We need to go low tech. We need to bring back our understanding of the processes of nature. We need to be vibing with nature. We need to be eating things that are coming from nature. There's enough food and everywhere in the world. See, I'm not an expert in all this everywhere in the world. In my place, let me tell you, come around where I live. I'll tell you what you could eat that grows naturally. Bring me over to Guatemala. Bring me over to like wherever in Africa. Bring me over to Bangladesh. Bring me over to Russia. I'll figure out what could be eaten there. You know, it's not too hard. There's still the knowledge is still there inside of the minds of some people. Golly. Confidential and voluntary safe reporting is essential, they say. That's what they're doing, you see. One neighbor's going to spy on the other and say, oh my God, look at that. He's got amaranth. He's emancipated himself from the food industry. I'm going to call the USDA, get him arrested. because the law could crack down now. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. They're using people against each other now, and they're doing this in California now with water. They've got this this program where if you see your neighbor watering a tomato plant, oh, you call the authorities because they can't be using water. Water's a problem in California. There's a drought. So citizens have to be have to help save the planet here and not use water. You know what? What about the wine industry? How much water are they using? How much water, is how much water are the almond fields using? How much is all these farmers using, to grow these crops in a tillage system where they're not putting mulch, they're not farming in a way that conserves water at all. What about Nestle going out in these cities and pumping and putting in deep wells and pumping in like hundreds of tons of gallons of water from the land, from the underground water reserves, and then putting it in bottles and selling it to people in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and all these people, drinking bottled water, and that's the water that you're not allowed to use to grow your kale, and your neighbor spies on you. And this all comes from, again, the government management, sustainable management. Conservation, sustainable, all these things are flawed. I'm writing a book right now about this kind of stuff here. I'm making videos and podcasts too, but it's got to be. I mean, the thing is this. It gets to the people's heartstrings, and it goes directly to the spiritual narcissism of people, and they fall in the trap. Sustainable, is the word sustainable there? Is it sustainable? There you go. I'm in. I'm gonna help. Yep. What is it that I need to do? But nobody stops to ask, what's the definition of sustainable? Who gave us the definition of sustainable? Is it really sustainable? What does it mean, conservation? Conserve. They've got a serious problem on their hands. They've got the climate change dinglings on one side, and they've got the conservationists on the other side. And one is saying, you got to be prepared for change. It's the whole thing's out of whack. And then we have to bring in new species, like the people in forestry, okay? Those Dr. Dinglings there. They're like, we got to plant genetically selected pine trees or whatever trees here in Canada that come from a certain seed stock that's one seed zone lower, okay, because it's going to get warm here. Oh yeah, the computer simulations have said it's going to get 5 degrees warmer, so let's prepare. We're smart, we're intelligent. Hey, look, we got doctors, we're doctors. We're going to plant these hybrid species, and you just wait. When the climate warms, they're going to grow so fast. We're going to be so proud. We're going to have so much wood here. But then you have people in conservation. They're like, wait a minute. We have to conserve. What we got here is what we want for future generations. See, no. What we got here, no, it can't change. No, there's no changing. It's not changing. It's not going to change. Well, no. Hey, what are you doing? It can't change. All right, that's it, man. Like, you go on, do your research, Amaranth, and okay, if you see Amaranth, go look at the pictures. It's beautiful. Go look at the pictures, okay? You see this Amaranth growing in your backyard, celebrate. Celebrate. You got food. This amazing food. It's not genetically altered. It's that hasn't been sprayed. It's got more protein. It's like, this is what you have to be eating. Maybe you go to jail with me, Maybe we meet in jail, and then we celebrate together in jail, We celebrate the fact that our consciousness has expanded to a place that we have become a a threat to this Luciferian system out there, this Luciferian mindset. People don't realize, they say, it was my coming to Jesus moment. Hello, they're linking this to the Bayers, Monsanto, Syngenta, military, MIT, genetic modification of the world agenda. They're linking their spirituality to that. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Is there something wrong, you think, with the religious mindset? Huh? Anyways, you figure this out. That's it. I'm over and out. Praise Amaranth. It's not a noxious weed. It doesn't need herbicides. Okay? This is the flip side. Bye, everybody.